All right. So it is terrifying to talk with not seeing anyone or no responses. But I just wanted to bring up a quick, no fancy slide deck today. This is mainly about Airtable and the automation feature that it got recently. Um, I was going to mention before we kick off, please, please, please feel free to interrupt me, toss in questions anytime. Yeah, use the Q&A function down below just to keep it easier. I've got the little QA window open, so your question should pop up and I'll answer it pretty much right away. Yeah, if you don't understand something, if you want to see it, try something different, or if you had ideas on how it could be used differently, I'd love to hear it and sort of chat real time about it. We've got an hour-long block for this. It shouldn't take that long, but so again, please, yeah, jump in for questions. And I think I definitely want this to be interactive as possible because I know everyone's got their own version of the database, and I think Airtable has been my favorite for a while, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so let's see. So first off, Airtable, what is it, and why do we use it? So I've used it at Riot, Blizzard, Epic, Wildlife, and I'm sure, and my own personal stuff as well. So it's been a huge help for me. So basically, the core of Airtable is it's a basically a relational database, and in in normal situations that would be relatively hard to set up, but because Airtable is such a clean interface, it's very easy to modify and to use. So I use it for basically service provider, list. I use it for invoice tracking, contract tracking, even meeting tracking. Um, and then I even use it internally to pitch. I'm not going to be showing this off today, but I even use it internally to basically put external teams in front of internal art directors. So yeah, so it's been a huge help. It's one of the core tools I use every day. And again, we use it because it's off the shelf. It's cost effective. It's relatively inexpensive, very easy to use. Anyone that looks at it is like, okay, I get it. And it has a really sort of wide range of very powerful, which is awesome. So I don't feel like I'm giving up anything by just buying something off the shelf in this situation. That's awesome. So let's jump in. So I'm going to be covering kind of four different things that we're going to automate today. There's going to be a situation where I have it set up basically like a Google form where external partners can fill out their own information, so there's no human error. That way, it's at least on my side. That way, we can get all of your good information into the database. But what we're going to do is notify people once service provider is added. We're going to talk about, and I'll show you how to send out notifications when contracts are ending, because I'm tracking contracts in the database as well. We can do all sorts of fancy stuff with notifying by email and Slack and a whole bunch of other things. The second to last one is basically the meeting notes broadcasting. So I'm thinking on one of the previous presentations, we talked about what information goes to what, or what's the audience for your information. And this is a cool one because you can basically craft different emails for different mailing lists. You can, anyway, there's a whole bunch of options in there that we'll show you later. But so you can broadcast meeting notes that are connected to the studio that you've been talking to, and are easy to broadcast out. If anyone doesn't have Airtable, you can send it out by email or Slack, same sort of thing. And then one last thing I'll show you is sort of like any other application, either Shotgun or Google Sheets or Excel, you can set up filtered views. The cool part about Airtable is you can have a notification based on a record entering that filtered view. So that gives you a whole bunch of power. You can do things like you can filter by big contracts. You can send out a summary of your spending per month. Anyway, we'll get into a little more details on that later. But those are the generally what I'm going to cover. Depending on the timing, I might drop the last one off or cut some of these short, but you'll start to see as I go through, a lot of this stuff is going to be very similar. Let's see, got a question about, has security for Airtable, or how has security or Airtable been in your experience? So it has passed the uh, all the IT folks at Epic took a look at it. They do have, what's it called when you can log in through Okta? Basically, like it's two-factor authentication, and it's also single SSO, so single sign-on compatible, which is great. So between those two, any IT department that I've put this in front of had a few questions, but other than that, it's been all right. I will say that every time I've used it so far has been still hosted by Airtable. I have not done a local install of Airtable. So as long as you convince your IT team that it's okay to have data on external servers, then you're all good. And the way I sort of made that argument too, I was like, we're using Shotgun, and that was on remote servers at the time. So I just said, like, can't we use Airtable too? And it was able to pass all the security screens and all that sort of good stuff. So you do have to be a little bit careful because I'm not going to cover in this section, but you do have a lot of power to basically share views outside of your own organization. Anyway, it does so much. I don't want to get distracted. It's so easy for me to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. But today we're talking about automation because that's one of the new features of it that I really like. All right, so the first one we're going to start off with is so you reach out to a new team, new freelancer, and you say, hey, could you send me your information? Usually in my introduction emails, I send a link to essentially what looks like a Google form. I'll show you exactly what it looks like. This is it. It's pretty straightforward, super simple. I mean, this has gotten a little bit long at this point, but you can make it as simple. I used to ask only like 3 questions, and now it's expanded a little bit. But I'll just show you how that works. So this is the input form that I would send a link to anyone that was interested in. And I just realized that please don't use this link right now. All right, so let's see. So we'll just put in some just generic information for this, just to show you how the end result will work, and then I'll show you how the automation system behind it. We'll rebuild it together to show you how it's set up. So Studio 6, I think we're at. Just put in a bunch of random information just so it has something. 50 people, you can add skills. This is another cool thing that it pulls this list from your database. So if you add traits or skills or anything like that, you can, they'll show up essentially immediately. So let's say I can do props animation, VFX, very wide range of skills. And then I have a section for here if people didn't find the skill that they wanted to talk about, they can mention, their different skills down here. Day rate, I'm just going to make up a number. Say I'm expensive, $5,000 a day. That's crazy. Currency, US dollars. I think that's kind of all. Who have you worked with? Lots of cool. So, contact name, contact email. All right, I think that's enough for the demo. They can even, I even have an attachment field so you can attach portfolios and that sort of stuff. So once I hit, actually here, I'll show you, I'll sort of minimize this view to show you. So we're going to be a little bit two screen because a lot of this is going to be Airtable's interaction with other things. So we're going to be interacting with Slack. So I have a Slack channel here that I'll be showing. We have, sorry. All right. We have, wow. We have email. So it ties directly into Outlook and Gmail. So both of those work. And then it ties into Gmail, Gcalendar, as well as Outlook. So I'm going to be showing Microsoft stuff today, but at Wildlife, we're Google. And yeah, I just figured I'd show Outlook and the mail and the calendar just for ease of use, just in case someone's not on on Google Suite. So let's open up the mail. So as soon as I hit go on this, we should, if I've activated everything, I'm going to double check to make sure. You're getting a sneak peek on some of this other stuff. So these are the things that we're going to cover in a minute, but these are the different automations that we're going to rebuild. So it looks like it's good. So now all I have to do is hit submit. And also, I forgot to mention it, but basically, if you have any questions after this, if you want to email me, feel free to reach out. Let's see what else. Cool. And then it takes a second or two, but then basically what I have set up is into my email comes this email. So it's formatted. I can build the formatting any way I want. I can include as much information or as little information as I want. So this is just, I wanted to show you sort of the end result before we jump into how it's built. This is the kind of thing that you can have come through to yourself, just to say, notify you, says, hey, that one team responded to your email and they put in their information. Also, I think it works. Yep. So I have two automations running, one that sends an email and one that sends a Slack message. So this is a sort of a different batch of information, much cleaner and simpler. And the cool part about both of these, I'll show you guys more of it later, but any of these, you can always reference back to the direct sort of the entity, the database entry inside of Airtable. So literally all someone has to do is say, okay, cool, this studio got entered. You can click a link, takes you directly to all the information about them. So it's a cool way to tie it. To me, I think what I like about it is it ties everything back together. There's no sort of like separate pieces of information. It all exists inside of Airtable, and we're just broadcasting out from it. So to me, again, that's sort of part of why I really like it. Let's see. Get the form back. So we entered that. And yeah, okay. And so this shows the final product. And so now I'll show how to basically rebuild this process. Now that you got to see the final result. So let's say, so this is our sort of the baseline view of the studios or companies or anyone that I'm tracking, right? Like obviously this is all fake data, but most of the columns are real that we used from our studio here at Wildlife. And I'm not going to cover it in this section, but within Airtable, there's tons of different views. This is a very basic grid view. There's a form view that you guys just saw. There's calendars, there's galleries, there's a Kanban board. We actually will see the Kanban board later when I automate some tasking. There's even a Gantt view, which has been really cool. And again, they're adding new stuff all the time, so it's kind of crazy how fast software is sort of growing in terms of feature set. So just to keep things simple for now, so here's a grid view of all our studios. And off to the side, there's two different sort of subsections. There's apps. I will breeze through this one really quick because I think it's cool to show, even though what we're really talking about is automation today. I kind of feel like this sort of goes along with automation. You can basically add an app or add a widget. There's dozens and dozens and dozens, and you can even script your own if you want. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to show you like how sort of open-ended this is. This is also a new thing that they've done recently, scripts. So you can even script your own little widget. So it doesn't take, you wouldn't need anyone too specialized. I want to say it's Python, but don't quote me on that. But it should be relatively easy. And if you don't want to script your own, there's tons and tons of stuff already that they have built in. So I have stuff here like here's the spending per month, and I can, if I roll it over it, I can see, I can click on the data and it literally pulls up the database entry for that piece of data. So I think that's always super cool for me to see. So you can send a screenshot of that report to someone, while at the same time, if someone has any questions, you can just open up the real-time view and get more data just by clicking the actual data in the graph. There's a Gantt, this is a timeline view, so this looks very similar to the Gantt view that they have. If you wanted to do it the bigger version of it, this is visualizing the contracts. I thought this one was kind of interesting. You can do a little pivot table. So you can see where you've spent, what studio and what project you've spent your money on. You can get a sum of it. And the cool part is that anytime there's no, there's no upkeep to this stuff. You just enter. As long as you keep your data clean in Airtable, then all of these things will function just fine. And if you don't like the widgets or anything that Airtable has, you can just dump out to, you can export to a CSV file. So it's, if for whatever reason you want to do something fancy in Excel or any other piece of software, that's there as well. All right. Let's see. I'll breeze through the rest of these really quick, but there's another one that I really like that where you can skills. So you can see like what studio has what skills. And the cool part is you can show records. So I can say, okay, I'm looking for concept. And then I look across and I say, okay, Studio 4 and Studio 5 can do concept. And then if I want to know more about them, again, just click that and it takes you to the full database record of that studio. And again, that's just, I'm using Studio as an example. You can do the same thing with meetings or contracts or anything. It's a database entry. And then you can even do crazy stuff. I feel like I've shown maps before, but Airtable makes this crazy easy. You do have to get a Google Maps API number, but that's pretty easy to set up. And again, like all the other graphs and all the other sort of widgets, you can just click on the UI there and expand records, and there's, again, you're back to the source of all the data. Let's see what else. And yeah, I added this one just today, just to show some folks. It came up yesterday, and I think one of the tools brainstorming things about reporting. And so this doesn't look like anything fancy. I didn't have time to make it look too fancy, but what I wanted to do is show you that basically you can take any information from the database, literally just drag and drop it on here. If I had address information, it would live in there. Let's see, here's the size of the studio, how many people it has, and you can really customize the whole page, make it any size and shape and present the information in any way you want. I could probably even throw a map on here. And then all I got to do is hit next record, next record, next record, or you can find a record specifically, and then you could even present it or print it directly. Looks like we got another question from Jesse. Say, for example, if you have 100 vendors in your system, how can you filter that view where you can see all their abilities like concept? That one's relatively straightforward. If you've ever messed with Shotgun, or I mean even Excel filtering or Google Sheets filtering, it's very similar. So there's a filter button there. Add a filter. You can say where. So I'll say skills contain. So if I'm looking for characters, I'll just type CH, and that gives me only characters. And this will sort of come back again. The filter will come back a little bit more once we talk about records entering the filtered view and then you getting notified from it. So I could save a view that's already filtered by characters, and then I'd get a notification by email, by Slack, whatever I want, that a studio has entered this filtered view. You can also group, which is pretty handy. So I can say group by type. So if one of these wasn't a studio, if it was an individual, so now it's grouped very similar to the way Shotgun does it. You can collapse. It shows sums of all that stuff. So the filtering and grouping is super fancy. And I hope that answered the question, Jesse. Thank you for the question. It's awesome. Let's see. Yeah, you can add colors, and there's tons of stuff here that I won't go too deep, that I don't want to go too deep on today. But I did want to quickly show the apps, because I thought that was cool. Show the page designer because it came up yesterday in one of the meetings. But really, what I'm going to focus on today is the automations. So here's the goods that we're going to be talking about today. So the one that you just saw function, the one that basically got me this email, and I haven't done calendar stuff yet, and then the Slack message was run by this automation. So basically, I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll rebuild it together so you can see sort of how easy it is. Honestly, most of it is the formatting on how fancy you want it to make it look, but it's super easy. So I can basically just say trigger when a record is created in the table companies. So each of these tabs is a table. Then so I run the test. So let's say I'm oh, actually, I'll cover that when I make it for new. I'll cover testing. Then what happens is it sends an email to this email address. You could have a group email if you have a, if you want to send it to your team. Basically, it uses variables from the database. So I'll show you how it adds the company name, but it basically uses the variable for the company name, has been added to Airtable, and you can even use markdown language to make things bold or add links, that sort of stuff. Depending on where you're sending this stuff to, some things want links to be formatted slightly differently. So in calendar view, you don't have to get too crazy. I'll show you that in a little bit. Basically, this contains all of the information that you are sort of sending off by email, by Slack, by however you want to send it. And if you wanted to add some more information, you just hit the plus button, and you'll see this more once we rebuild it. And you just hit continue, and then you basically have access to any of the fields from the companies tab. So I can broadcast as much or as little of that information as I want. One of the key ones that I really like is Airtable record URL. So whether I send someone an email with this URL, or I include it in a Slack message or an email like this, it will link back directly to the database, which again I think is one of the most powerful features of it. So I'll open it sort of side by side so we can see what's happening. All right, so here's automations. This is the company input. Okay, so here's the email. So it includes the company name. It includes a whole bunch of other information. Obviously, I had it in a numbered list. There's all the data. And again, most of my time here was spent on formatting, like making sure this was a numbered list, that things were bold, that things were spaced correctly. Making the actual record, like setting this up, is super fast, and you'll see that in a minute. And you can add as many actions as you want. So actions can be anything from sending records, creating records, updating. There's tons of stuff it can do. So I'm going to be using some of the simpler ones today, just for like notification and broadcasting of information. But you can get really crazy with it. You can have it run a script if you wanted to, and you can go pretty deep with that. I haven't done that yet, but it's there. And if any of you guys have done that, I'm excited to see what you guys can do with it. Even ties into Google. So if you really like Google Forms, it can tie into that. Let's see, Google Calendar, obviously Google Sheets, even ties into Microsoft Teams, Jira. I'm not sure why, but you can even do Twitter and Facebook posts. And then sort of what I'll be showing later on will be Outlook and Outlook email and Outlook calendar, as well as Slack message, obviously. Yeah, so I have this one thing. So when a new record was created, it did the two things that you saw happen. So email came through, and a Slack message was posted. So let's rebuild that. So I can show you how super simple it is. So we're going to choose a trigger, and again, this is so here's a good view of what you can use as a trigger. Ooh, there's a question that just came in from Michael Paul. Maybe save for the end, but it would be interesting to know things you've tried to do with Airtable that didn't work. It seems super flexible. That is a good question. Let's save that to the end. I'm going to keep that. I'll keep that there, and we'll make sure that we have time for it at the end. Another one came from Aaron. Hey Grayson, I'm using Airtable to manage actors' availability and scheduling. How do you manage any updates from service providers? For example, once you have captured any information, how do you update, change skills, etc., without doing it manually? That is one thing that Airtable doesn't have yet that I really want it to have. It doesn't have the ability to give the person who responded to that form the ability to edit their information after the fact. So sometimes what I'll do is just have them manually send me any updates. But yeah, maybe, and actually, Michael, that maybe answers some of your question is, that doesn't necessarily work for, not that it doesn't work, but just Airtable doesn't have that feature yet. I wish it did, because man, oh man, that would be amazing if I could basically give someone their own profile and they could update it as they see fit and toss new portfolio information on there, that sort of stuff. But as of now, once they enter it, it's gone, and you can only update it manually, sort of on my side. So we'll get back to the, but we'll remember more of Michael's question for at the end. What doesn't work in Airtable? All right, so this is a list of triggers. So you can say when it matches conditions, when a record's created, tons of hooks on what can trigger an event. You can even get as crazy as using a webhook. So if any of you guys have used Zapier, I think is the name of it, that can connect in through webhooks. You can even script your own webhooks as well and send sort of and ping the database to trigger events as well. And Michael Paul just mentioned in the chat, maybe updates could be resolved through scripting. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I bet you that's a thing, because I do know you can email into Airtable. That is a really cool feature. I did have to, last time I did that, I had to do it through Zapier, where I would send an email to a Zapier email that would then divert into Airtable and then input the data. I'm not going to be showing that today because it's a little hard to set up, and it covers a lot of different sort of software platforms. But if you're into it, look up Zapier. It sort of connects any web-based software. It's awesome. So for today, we're going to use, what did I just say? When a record is created. And so when a record is created in the companies table, so it's really that easy. So I just said when it's created, companies, I'll do a test run. And then the cool part is it says ran successfully, but you can also get the data of what happened. So you can say it looked in here and it found a record, and there's the URL to it. And now let's go down to actions now that we have successfully sort of placed our trigger. So we could do, so now let's try to duplicate the Slack message. So we can say after a record's been put into the database by whoever, if it's me, if it's through the form, any way it got there, it'll send a message, or it'll trigger this event. You select your Slack account. Sort of beforehand, I went in here and just hit connect new accounts. You can connect multiple. So like here's my work one, and here's the one that I set up for this demo. You select a channel. So that's just the channel I have for the demo. And then this is what's going to be in the message. So here's where you start to enter the variables from the company's database. I'm just going to keep it real simple because you guys have seen how sort of like detailed it can get. But obviously the big one I like to do is to say the company name. So I can insert, so here's company name, all I got to do, and it shows you an example before you roll over it. So I just hit insert, and then it shows this little box. The one thing I don't like, be aware of this, is you cannot copy and paste or move these. It's not sure why it was like this, but I can't move it once it's placed, and copy and pasting doesn't work either. So, but you can add text as well, and if you need to recreate that, you just delete it and start a new one. So in this situation, company name has been added to the database. And then if you want to, like, you could just leave it there and that's fine. But even if I'm not giving any other information, I really like to include the URL to the actual, the record entity. So again, same sort of thing right at the top, Airtable record URL. And there's a record ID. Haven't used that one before. That'd probably be more useful in scripting. To basically, it's a unique identifier. It's a key. What else? And then anything in here is just more fields from the company's tab, from the company's table. So you can select anything in there, but really in this situation, I'm going to keep it super simple. I'm just going to say insert the URL back to the database entry. So here, and just for fun, I'm gonna do this. So this is v2, so we know it's gonna be actually the updated one. And the cool part is every step of the way, I still have it off. So right now it won't do anything until I fix my typing here. OCD, there you go. So let's say, okay, before I start blasting everything, maybe I set this to a test, channel only for myself. And then at the very bottom, you have to do them sequentially. So you have to test run the trigger. Once it's got that information, then you can test run the actual, the message part, the action. So I hit test. Slack's pretty quick. There it goes, shows up right away. So it ran successfully. It gives you a little bit of data on what it did. And if you have both screens open, you can see exactly what it did already. So to me, that's super helpful for like, we have a outsourced team Slack channel. So we can just say, hey, this team got input. And it sort of just gets the word out to the rest of the team. So everyone knows, can keep in touch on what teams we're talking to and that sort of stuff. As obviously as wildlife expands and as companies expand for you guys, making sure that if you have outsourced managers in more than one location, this is the super handy stuff to make sure everyone's on the same page. And I didn't have to do anything. Like this didn't take any extra time in my day to run this. All it takes is someone entered the information. That information is blasted out to the whole outsourcing team, which I think is great. I'm not going to rebuild the email here, but basically, if we wanted to send an email, it's super straightforward. You could send to Gmail. You could send a Microsoft Teams message. You could just send email. I just select my email account, who it's going to, the subject, and the cool part is you can even enter variables into the to. So if for whatever reason you wanted it to send a confirmation back to the service provider, that's a way to do it. Maybe this could be part of where you script it so that it could give them a link to edit it in the future. Maybe. Now I'm dreaming. But the cool part is basically you can add variables in sort of any field. So it's great. So on the subject line, you can put in, so you can see in my mail, I have it sort of the same thing I did in Slack, where it's like, this studio has been added, and this part, Studio 6, that's the variable, and then the rest is just text that I entered. So just for fun, we'll put the company name again, and then we'll put, oops, doesn't it want to add it after? There you go. And then we can add the record URL to the Airtable, to the actual database entry. It gives you a little handy link here, but just so you guys know, you can use all of the sort of, I'll say, typical Markdown language that you're used to. So you can have headings, you can do all sorts of stuff to make it look, not like just a boring message. You can bring a little bit of love to it, so to grab people's attention and hopefully get them clicking links, anything like that helps encourage people to actually follow up on the information that you're sending out. You can do, there's so much. Yeah, Markdown's super helpful to make this look pretty. So if I wanted to bold the company name, I'd just put some asterisks on either side, and that would give me a bold company name. Again, I'm going super light with this just for timing, but really you can enter any information. I could include everything that they entered. I could even attach things as well. I could even have it attach the PDF if the service provider attached a PDF. That way it doesn't necessarily have to just live on Airtable. Yeah, and I think that's it. So I'm not going to test run that, but it's the same process. You set up your your action. So what happens? It's going to send an email to who, subject line, message, and then you do the same thing at the bottom. For some reason, this is in early access, so I've had issues where sometimes I have to like come back before it lets me test it. I had this happen earlier today where it doesn't show the test. I think I was able to get around that by just sort of backing out and then going back in. I'm not going to fight it too much if it doesn't show me it right now, but Gmail seems to work consistently, and most other triggers seem to work consistently as well. So you'll see a very similar thing where it just says test, and you can click that and it'll send you a test email without spamming the real people that you want to have this go to eventually. And then once you're happy with it, then you just flip the on switch and off you go. If you ever get in a situation where you're not happy with something or something's breaking, it's generating too much noise, and you can always just come in and turn it on, turn it off for now. And because we haven't tested it, we haven't tested the Outlook one, it's not going to let me turn it on. So I'm actually going to remove that just to show you. Then you can just flip the on switch, and now it's actually active anytime someone adds to the database. All right, so that covers basically new studios showing up on this table. The next one that we're going to cover is end of contract notification and tasking. So it's going to be relatively similar in some ways, but a little different. So again, another thing that I track in here is contracts. And the cool part again with Airtable is all of this stuff, because I'm tying contracts back to companies. So it's listing the company here. I can just click the company that's listed on the contract, and it draws a little line back to this other table, so you can see where it's pulling information from. So that's again super handy. Just have sort of one source of information. I can click the project, and it draws a little line over to, I have a projects tab somewhere down here. Yeah, you can add or remove projects as necessary. Very similar to some of the stuff you guys are used to with Shotgun or Excel or Google Sheets. But we'll be focusing on just a few things for now. All right, so if we have a contract that's coming up, if I want to make sure that I keep on top of renewing contracts and stuff like that, so I've got a contract listed in here with Studio One for a bunch of money, number of assets, in-game animation, starts and finishes. Okay, so a bunch of information in there. I'll show you the final result, and then we'll rebuild it like we did before. Where is my end of contract? Here we go. So this is another. Actually, should I go back to? Yeah, we can just do it in here. So again, instead of using when a record is created, we're using the trigger when a record matches conditions. This will be similar to what I'll show later on with records entering a view, a filtered view. So we're sort of doing a mini version of a filter here that's just going to be essentially sort of not hard-coded, but this filter will exist inside of the automation. I'll show you afterwards that you can have the filter exist in a view and then do it that way as well. But for this situation, I'm saying anything in contracts when the contract is finished within the next month, then do stuff, right? So that's my trigger. I'm then going to create a record of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a task to say, okay, the contract is ending. We want to actually put that on someone's plate to do. We're going to create a to do for them. So I have a little team task thing here, and this is a Kanban board, very similar to kind of Trello, or I think even Jira's got a view that's very similar to this, but pretty straightforward view. What we're going to do is say, hey, in the team tasks tab, we're going to add two records. One's going to be for contract renewal. It's saying contract renew, and this is using the name of the contract. So that is pulling this information here. This information is also kind of cool because this is a formula. So it's the contract start date, the company, and sort of the title of what it is. So in-game animation or concept. So it'll into the team tasks, we'll go a task that says, renew this contract. Here's the name of it. It's assigned to me, but you can assign it to basically anyone in Airtable. Here's a link to it. So if you have any more questions about it, there's the link to the actual contract sort of data that you need to renew. So renew the contract is one task, and another one is process invoice. So invoice, this could be a situation where I'm not showing it in this example, but this could be a perfect place to say, email the service provider and prompt them to send in your invoice, or even send them an invoice template. There's a lot of things you could do with this, but for right now, I'm just going to use it to set up 2 tasks inside of Airtable. To be honest, I haven't been using sort of the team tasking too much. Usually, I've been using it for like backlog stuff, but I'm tempted to start stuff like this because this is so helpful. It actually makes a task to like that can't disappear. You cannot forget to renew the contract if it adds a card for you in here. Attachments, you could do stuff like you could say attach the original contract because it's pulling from the invoice tab table. Oops, sorry, not the invoice table, the contracts. Usually what we would do is there is an attachment field. I might have hidden it. Attachments. Yeah, so a lot of times that we'll attach the NDAs, we'll attach the contracts directly to the database entry. So in a situation like this, I could even attach the contract PDF to the task without even having to click the contract record, go into the contract record and open it up there. So again, more things you could do. So right in here, you could just go attachments, and then all you'd have to do is find the attachments and then hit continue. And ooh, is it not going to let me do file name? Oh, we could probably just do the link to it. It doesn't look like it's actually going to let me do the file itself. Huh. For some reason, I thought you could. Anyway, but yeah, so basically you can give people easy access back to files, which is handy. And then the last thing in this one we're going to do is then we're going to add a calendar event to also further remind people to, hey, don't let this contract end without doing something about it. So just for fun, I'm going to hit go on this one so you guys can see what happens. So we'll keep we already have tested when contracts end so that it's collected the information it needs. Now we're going to go to create the contract renewal task. So I hit test there and make this a little bit bigger. Oops, oh, it's because the default is uncategorized. You could have it default to do or anything you want, but I had it automatically assigned to me. It has the link back to the contract database entry. And it can have basically any other information you want. I could set a due date for it that would match the end of the contract, or the end of the contract minus a couple days, that sort of stuff. But now you can't miss this. So not only do we have to renew the contract, but we also have to. So this one is the process invoice. So this one would be, let's test that one, make sure that one works too, and there's the test invoice task. It can be assigned to different people. It could be assigned to a team, anything you want. And then the last one is the calendar event. So this one's kind of cool. I'll open up my calendar just so you can see it show up. So it's going to, again, to my Outlook calendar. It's using the contract finished date as when to put the start time and the end time. So it's just the same date. It's an all-day event. This is the title for the event. You can put the description. I just put a link back to the original Airtable, and then you can add a whole bunch of you can add more information if you wanted to. Now just hit test again, and hopefully, if everything works, there we go. So contract ending shows up in my calendar. There's a link to that's the contract name up top. There's the link to the Airtable record. So if I didn't attach the contract information here, if I didn't include any extra information, I could just click this, and again, it would take me straight back to here's all of the contract information that I could then make sure that, hey, invoice us for X percentage or however you want. Philip Denison had a question. Is it easy to limit visibility of certain fields to all but a subset of viewers and users? Yes, this is actually another one of my favorite things that Airtable can do. So let's say I wanted to show the art director only individuals. Yeah, let me go ahead. I'll try to do this really quick right now. But basically what we can do is say, if I only wanted to show the individual freelancers, I'm going to duplicate this view just for ease of use. I can say, I'm going to filter by skill. Actually, no, take that out. So it's all. And then I want to say, let's see what we wanted to filter by type. Sure. Type is individual. Okay, so here's a list of all our individuals. If I wanted to share this view, and because it's a copy, what I can also do is I can hide other stuff. So I can hide, I don't need the art director to know how much they cost. So I'm just right-clicking and hiding the field, hide field. So I can keep on doing that and slim it down as much as I want. And then you go to share view. And the coolest part is you can create a shareable grid view. And then you can, there's a whole bunch of options here. You can, this is a unique link, very similar to like if you've shared stuff like in Google Drive or OneDrive or anything like that. Allow data to be synced to other bases, so usually you wouldn't want that. Show all fields, so no, you're only going to see the fields that I've left unhidden. And then all I got to do is send this to my art director. So even if he doesn't have access to everything, he'll have access to only this particular view. And so you can see it's a much more limited data set. So you can say, oh, it's only the fields that I showed, and it expands, but again, it only shows the fields that I've left on here. If I removed one of these fields, like if I removed the geocode that I'm using for the maps, this wouldn't show up in here. And the art director would only see the name, the status, the link, and that's it. I've even done situations where like this, and this is the perfect example of the kind of things that I'll send to an art director, but I'll make it in a Kanban view because you can add little images, little image headers to the top of it. So it looks nice. Man, this is going a lot slower than I expected. So, but yeah, so this is a way to do it, and then that keeps them from, you restrict it to just your email domain. You can restrict it by a password. There's a whole bunch of ways you can make sure that no one gets access to it unless you want them to. Cool. Thanks, Philip. That's awesome question. Done. And now let's jump to, close that out. What were we doing? Okay, right. We added to the calendars. So that shows a quick way of how to basically add sort of calendar events. Just for time reasons, I'm not sure if I'm going to go through and rebuild it. It's basically the same process that I went through for the others. I just added more actions, and one of the actions happened to be, Outlook calendar and create a record. I could create any kind of record I want in any of the different tables inside of Airtable. That was using this trigger here, create record. And there is an update record function, so it makes me believe that we could have a workflow for the external partners to update their information. Anyway, my brain's stuck on that because I'm excited to solve that problem. Anyway, so I'm not going to rebuild this one just for time, but basically you can see how easy it is. You're adding actions, start with the trigger, add actions, good to go. That's a handy one. So again, you can make sure that your team, and again, I didn't have to do anything. Like the contract got entered probably by hand at some point. We negotiate a contract, that gets entered. And after that, I don't have to remind anyone to update it. I don't have to, even remember it myself. It'll make the calendar events for me. It'll send tasks to myself or anyone on the team that we decide. And you can have as many actions as you want. So it's really, really handy. let's see where we are. So that sort of covers sort of contract notification and tasking. So the tasking was the sort of the Kanban cards. Notifications is basically, the Slack message or the calendar, event, that sort of thing. Meeting notes broadcast. This is one that I'll cover really quick, but I think this is really, really, really helpful for again if you have more than one outsourced manager, especially if you have more than one outsourced manager at a different location. I always want to know sort of what the last communication with a studio was. And so I've got, very similar to the external partner input form, I've got a meeting input form, same idea. So I can say, I talked to Studio One today, notes from the meeting, what was the date today? I can add attendees if I want to. I can add attachments if they sent a PDF or anything with the meeting. I also have, and so for other people on my team, I sort of have just a Google wiki page for like good sort of questions to ask if you're interviewing service providers. And so it's a nice sort of homepage where it's, hey, are you talking to a studio today? Go to this page, fill out the notes, and then they hit submit, and it's done. Ooh, 5 minutes left. This is gonna be fast. All right. So let me just hit submit on that just so it works. Oh, that's not going to work, I think, because, oh, this actually took me to the other database. So now what happened is now you'll see a second meeting show up. This was the one that I just entered. And to show you what happened, what did we say got triggered? Oh, there it is. Okay, so in this automation, so for new meeting notes received, when a record's created, again, very similar. So the same as when the companies are added, sending a Slack message just like before, but slightly differently. This says, here's the meeting notes here's the title of the meeting, here's the notes from the meeting, and here's a link back to the should have worked. But that link will normally just take you directly back to the record. Oh, because this is a test. Right. So the cool part of that is if someone else had meeting notes as well, what you could do is then go to sort of your meeting section, and you could have notes from multiple people. So you could add, so if someone saw your meeting notes come in, click the link, I just add my meeting notes down here in the next, and people can join in. And then the nice way, if you ever want to check what meetings you've had with a company, you would open up the studio sort of database entry and scroll down until you find meetings, and there's the meeting. If I click that, it then takes me to the meeting table and shows me all the meeting notes. So I have a real-time view of who's meeting with, what studios, what was said, what was promised, that sort of stuff, so that no matter how many people you're working with, how many outsourced managers, how many studios you're working with, it's all the data stays in one place. And again, I'm not gonna dig into sort of rebuilding that. It works very, very, very similar. Meeting notes, yeah, so very similar. When a record's created, send a Slack message. I could send an email if there was stakeholders that I wanted to let know about this meeting. They wouldn't even have to have access to Airtable, but this could send them an email if I wanted to do it that way. Let's see, we're kind of running out of time, but basically I'll just show you where the filtered view notification lives, or the filtered view trigger lives, just because we're down on time, and I want to give you guys, I want to chat about Michael Paul's question, what doesn't work. So let's say you have a filtered view. So filtered view like this one. So this is the one that I filtered to only have individuals, right? So if for whatever reason, oh, this is another big one. Actually, we have to work very closely, especially for individuals. We have to work closely with recruiting to not sort of be double pinging the same freelancer, the same person. Like the recruiter saying, hey, we want to hire you. An outsource manager saying, hey, we'd love to work with you. And then the candidate gets confused and weirded out. So maybe this is a good opportunity to let the recruiting team know that an individual is added to the database. But again, it's the same process. Let's see, new rebuild. Oh, okay. So when a record, and so really this is just a different type of trigger when a record enters a view. And so all I did was I'll pick companies, and then I'll pick, I didn't title my view very well, but base view copy. So anytime someone shows up in here, uh, you will, you can then do an email. And so this email is sending it to, back to me. I think at the time I was doing a test for like, oh, it's a big contract and we need approval for it. But this could be a notification to a recruiting team that's like, hey, outsourcing team's talking to someone. Make sure that, you know, you don't touch them, or if you do, come talk to the outsourcing team first. But again, it's the same process. By just balancing triggers and actions, there's an infinite amount of possibilities from these few things that I showed you. Really quickly, and then we'll get into Michael Paul's question. I did want to talk about, so that's filtered view. That's the last thing that I really want to make sure I mentioned. But I did want to cover some other stuff that's like possible future stuff, and then we can talk about Michael's question about what doesn't work. I have this crazy idea where you can have a trigger that when an email is received, you could have a filter inside your email when it's received and it goes into, service provider folder. You could have filters that set that up on your Outlook. But let's say an email is received there, or you could have it from a specific email. I think there's ways of doing that. This is any new email, but you can filter by basically from a specific email. You could have it go, you could have that email directly put into like the meetings, or you could have another tab that says email communication with studios or service providers. And you could literally track any email I ever got could automatically be put into the database, connected to the right studio using situations like this. So anytime an email is received, add action, we could say create record, meeting notes, and then start adding in what I want to show up as an email meeting. That's something I've been playing with. I like the idea of that. I haven't implemented that yet because it's terrifying. I don't like the idea of an open stream of email just going into Airtable. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Is there anything else I wanted to quickly talk about? Yeah, the scripting I haven't messed with. That looks awesome. The webhooks I haven't messed with. Other things that you could use this for is like weekly digests. You could say, hey, in maybe every time a contract is added to here, you could have it send a digest of all contracts from that month. So you could say, from this month, here's all the contracts you've done so far, including the new one you just added. And if you're tracking budget information in there, you could say, you are X amount of dollars above or below your budget. Yeah, the update record, I haven't messed with that one either, but again, that looks interesting. I feel like you could do some good stuff with that. But I like the digest ones, and I've shown you a bunch of like notification emails as well. So I think that could be very useful in the future. So I know we're basically out of time. Thank you guys for sticking around. I do want to address Michael Paul's question, but if you have to take off, I understand. Yeah, it's let's see. So let's see. Natalia asked a question, how long did it take to see the benefits from automations? So real quick answer this, and we'll do Michael's questions. Honestly, almost immediately. It was something I was sort of just joking about, and I turned it on. I spent maybe an hour trying to figure out like formatting and stuff. I turned it on overnight, and then all of a sudden my team was getting Slack messages and emails every time a studio was added. They instantly fell in love with it and asked for a few other things to be added. So that was cool. So it took an hour's worth of my time and basically instant effect on the team side. So that was really I was happy about that, and that was really cool. Okay, so Michael, so I think we're done. We're done for the most part. But anyone, please jump in with more questions. But stuff it doesn't do, to know things you've tried that didn't work. The one I mentioned is updating things after they've already been put in. So far, I've been having to do it manually. There's like you guys mentioned in chat, there's probably a way to do it with scripting. I haven't dug that deep yet. What else? not in love with the calendar view. It's helpful. I'm not in love with it. The Gantt view is new. I haven't yet sort of tried the Gantt view too much. It seems okay. Um, oh, and another one. I'll show you. I'll tell you about this one. It's not going to be very apparent here, but so there's lots of data sideways, and in most applications you can hold Shift and scroll, and Airtable doesn't work, and that's like that seems pretty basic to me, but it gets me on a daily basis that I can't scroll sideways by using Shift and the mouse wheel. What else? Oh yeah, gallery view is the other one I was talking about instead of Kanban. Gallery view is what I would send to the art directors. So you put the little header on it, that sort of thing. It's actually worked pretty well for getting art director sign off on studios because they'll click this and they'll see any attached files, and just in like a little gallery view there. Apologize for not setting up a demo of this earlier, but I didn't think we'd go this far. What else doesn't work? Oh, I know. Oh, I mean, and this is because I'm spoiled with Shotgun. In Shotgun, you can make filters, and then you can make a really complicated filter and then turn the filter off. In Airtable, once you make a filter, it exists, and you can't shut it off without deleting it. So it kind of stinks because I find myself in situations where I'm in the base view, and like the question that came up earlier, I want to find all character studios. And I have to do this. I have to apply a filter, then type in character, and then it gives me the filter view. I can make a new one. I can make a new page with a constant filter. But if I show up on a page and the filters are cross-user, so sometimes someone else from my team has been looking up, animators. I'm coming in here and I'm going, where the hell is where's all the studios? And then I have to go in here and, oh, okay, it's filtered, and then turn that off, and then okay. So usually what we do is we have our own personal views for filtering stuff. I don't like that I can't just shut off the filter like Shotgun. I know it's little, that's probably nitpicky, but I love the way Shotgun handles filters, and I love that you can just make super complicated ones, just flip them off so they're not active, and anytime you want, you can flip them back on.